question for our first hour: are the Libertarians winning? And by the Libertarians, I mean the hard right, the Koch brothers, the billionaires, the people who believe that American that the core values of America are that rich people should get richer and richer and richer, and that's just a fine thing. And, you know, poor people are the rabble, to quote John Adams. I mean, that was his phrase that he constantly used to refer to people that he didn't think should be allowed to vote. People who were not Federalists. Oh, my God, they weren't white male property owners. But are they winning? Is that what's going on? There's, Trump is pushing $100 billion tax break for the ultra-rich in the form of a decrease in the tax paid on capital gains. Capital gains, if you buy a stock, say you're a billionaire, right? And you put $100 million into Apple stock, and it goes up 10% over the course of a year. So that $100 million is now $110 million. You made a $10 million profit. You sell that stock, and you have to pay taxes on that. Well, on $10 million of income, well, actually, the capital gains tax tops out at, I think, 20%. In fact, they might have lowered it with the GOP tax scam to 15%. But it tops out, let's say it tops out at 20% where it used to be. So you're paying 20% income tax on that $10 million, which is $2 million, I believe. Yeah. And so you're only left with $8 million. Well, they want to cut this. They want to say, well, let's say that there's been some inflation since the time you bought that stock. And this is mostly going to be consequential to people like Warren Buffett, who hold stocks for decades. The real billionaire investors, the Bill Gates of the world, the people who buy stocks and sit on them for 10 years, and they're going to get this huge tax break, $100 billion tax cut for the very, very, very rich. So are the Libertarians winning? This from the New York Times, Alan Rappaport and Jim Tankersley. The Trump administration is considering bypassing Congress to grant a $100 billion tax cut mainly to the wealthy. Steve Mnuchin announced that his department is studying this. Mr. Mnuchin said if we can't get it done through the legislation process, we will look at what tools at Treasury we have to do it on our own. We'll consider that. Meanwhile, you've got this, there was a piece in this morning's Financial Times, in fact, I believe it's the top headline in the Financial Times, reporting that the yield on 10-year Treasury bonds has now passed 3%. 3% is not the prime interest rate. It's now what the government is having to pay to get people to buy bonds. Why? Well, the article points it out quite clearly. It's because the Trump administration is borrowing like a drunken sailor, my phrase, not theirs. And having known a few drunken sailors, I don't know if they borrow a lot, but in any case, haven't been a drunken sailor, I guess. They're borrowing money like there's no tomorrow. I mean, they're having to borrow $1 trillion in the fiscal year that starts October 1st just to fund their tax break for billionaires. $1.5 trillion they're going to have to borrow, which means they're going to have to issue treasuries, 10 and 20-year treasuries. And, everybody's getting ready. Well, what that also means is the cost of our national debt is going up, which is not a good thing. So, this, by the way, is an old scam. This is the two Santa Claus scam being played out in real time right in front of us. This was something that Jude Wieniski laid out back in 1976 in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. And he said, he pointed out in 76, you'll recall, those of you who lived through it will recall, those of you who read history will know that this was just a couple of years after Nixon resigned, and Jimmy Carter was elected in 76. There was this huge wave against the Republicans because of all the corruption of the Nixon years, Nixon taking bribes, Nixon telling lies, Nixon having enemy lists, all this stuff. And the Republicans felt like, we'll never recover from this. This is the end of the Republican Party. Nixon killed the party. And Jude Wieniski wrote this op-ed for the Wall Street Journal saying, no. We didn't, Nixon didn't kill the party. We can bring the party back. All we have to do is convince people that we're Santa Claus just like the Democrats are. And we need to force the Democrats to shoot their own Santa Claus. Judah Wieniski pointed out in this article in the Wall Street Journal back in 1976 that ever since the 1930s, ever since FDR, Americans have viewed the Democratic Party as the party of Santa Claus. The Democratic Party brought us Social Security. The Democratic Party brought us Medicare. The Democratic Party brought us Medicaid. The Democratic Party brought us minimum wage. The Democratic Party brought us unionization. The Democratic Party brought us unemployment insurance. The Democratic Party brought us, basically the entire social safety net, and every single element of it was protested and fought tooth and nail by Republicans, beginning to end, top to bottom. And so then now the Republicans have to figure out a way how to undo this, right? So this is Judah Wieniski's article. He says, the Democrats are Santa Claus. The Republicans have never been viewed as Santa Claus. When we say, no, we don't like Social Security. This is what George W. Bush campaigned, all around the country in 2005 to privatize Social Security. Didn't work, but he tried. So, and Republicans right now, they're trying to destroy Medicare and Medicaid. And in fact, this last budget that Trump passed cut $200 million out of Social Security. So the wait time when you go on Social Security to get any kind of processing done or any kind of help is going to be much, much longer, and you're going to be much more frustrated with the bureaucracy, which is what they want. They want you to hate that bureaucracy. They want you to hate Social Security and Medicare. So Judah Wieniski says, okay, here's how you do it. When Republicans are in power, run up the national debt as hard and as fast as you can. Reagan came into office, there was an $800 billion national debt. When he left office, it was about $2 trillion. He tripled the national debt, or nearly tripled. I think it was 2.1 trillion, 2.4 trillion would have been complete tripling. George W. Bush doubled the national debt. I mean, this is what Republicans do. And this is what Judah Wieniski said Republicans should do. Prior to that, Republicans had always been advocates of, balancing the budget and fiscal, they still talk about this, right? But not when a Republican is in the White House. Run up the national debt when you have the ability to do it, and then as soon as the Democrats take control, which they inevitably will, scream about the national debt. Scream about it so loud that the average American is freaked out and telling his politicians, oh my God, the national debt, we got to do something. And then say, wow, we can solve the debt problem. Let's just cut back on spending. We don't need Medicare. We don't need Medicaid. We don't need long-term disability insurance. We don't need long-term unemployment insurance. We don't need any unemployment insurance. And on it goes, right? And if you can get a Democrat to go along with that, like Bill Clinton with we're ending welfare as we know it, or Barack Obama almost chaining the CPI, the Consumer Price Index of Social Security, doing the chain CPI, cutting Social Security benefits over time. If Democrats go along with it, then after they have, you point out, hey, that Democrat just shot Santa Claus. But we'll be Santa Claus, Republicans, we will be Santa Claus. We're the tax cut Santa Claus. And it's all one consistent thing. So that's what's going on. And then you use that to gain the political power to completely deconstruct the liberal welfare state. So we've got this government reform and reorganization plan. This was proposed back in the middle of June. It's on the White House website. Under this plan, the government sells off the Postal Service, sells it off. So if you live in a rural area, it's not going to cost you 50 cents to send a stamp. It's going to cost you $8 because you're going to have to do it via UPS. Sell off the Postal Service. Sell off the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. Eliminate more than 1/3 of the U.S. Public Health Corps. So, no, we don't need to be ready for an epidemic or a pandemic. Restructure all foreign aid and development program and place all domestic programs that help poor families or children under a single agency that has the word welfare in its name. So it's easy to stigmatize all this stuff. There's also a massive real estate bonanza for developers by selling off private property. Cuts or restructures all the federal programs that are meant to educate people about their financial rights and protect them from bank and mortgage fraud. Cut R&D at NASA. Cut all funding for any form of alternative energy. Put all of this under a single Department of Energy agency. Department of Welfare is created, and all forms of support go through that. Streamline privatization of federal assets via the Customer Experience Improvement Capability. transfer all background checks on federal employees away from the FBI and into the Pentagon. Is this the beginning of a this is from Lori Garrett, by the way, a recipient of the Pulitzer Prize. Net impact of the Trump government reorganization scheme is taking everything across government that is for the poor and needy people and consolidating under a single budgetary authority, cut science all over the place, eliminate the Census Bureau, reduce legislation, etc. This is what they're doing. And in the midst of this now they're going to be selling, phony life insurance or health insurance policies starting in 3 months. I'll tell you about that after the break. And I've got some warnings for you from previous political figures about exactly what I'm talking about.